Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. We have some breaking news talking about Palantir Technologies being awarded even another contract, and we're also going to be going into great detail about what's all included with the Maven contract and what the initial funding is of that $480 million up front. Also, Palantir does a great job trading with green today in a sea of red. We see Salesforce that has one of the worst trading days in a 2-decade period, and on top of uncertainty with what the PCE index data in terms of inflationary data is going to report tomorrow, a lot of investors are getting concerned on what the probability of the first round of interest rate cuts is going to look like, and is that going to happen come September. In addition, we're going to be talking about June 21st. That is the next S&P 500 quarterly review that could possibly be talking about will Palantir be included in the S&P 500. We're going to be talking about that, breaking that whole scenario down. And in addition, NVIDIA, we're going to be checking this, talking about recently the stock split that's coming and what this can mean for potential investors. So if you are a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now, pop it up on the screen here, what we see with Palantir Technologies, up about 4% in terms of a trading day. Like I said, doing pretty well in the sea of red. You can see the major indexes here, NASDAQ, Dow Jones, S&P, all down about 1%. Specifically, PLTR has been doing a really good job holding that $20 level of support. And why we've said that this has really been a critical level of support is because last year, remember, this was a key resistance point for Palantir. So the fact that Palantir has now been able to hold this level, and even specifically at the 21s, now possibly getting into the 22s, will be entering into more of a buying pressure type of momentum, in my opinion, if we have good inflationary data. I think that's going to be leaving a large impact on the market in terms of volatility in general. Now, pop it up specifically talking about Palantir here. This comes from Amit, another great Palantir content creator, posted here on Twitter, breaking down more about this Maven and the Army contract worth about $480 million. What we know is that starting with an initial order, there's going to be $153 million that is going to be given right away. And this is to support commands and the joint staff. In addition, additional awards of that $480 million are going to be spread out over a 5-year period. And in addition, Palantir was actually awarded another $33 million contract from the Chief Digital Artificial Intelligence Office right here to rapidly and securely onboard third-party and government and vendor capabilities. So doing very well here, and specifically with Palantir getting in and bagging what we see here from Investor Place, the Maven AI contract, working with them to support intelligence analysis by really fusing data from intelligence, surveillance, and these different types of systems. Now, talking about what happens next with PLTR, and people talking about should you get into PLTR before June 21st. We're going to start to see this date that will start appearing across the board, especially as trendiness is coming in, because there's a lot of hopium that a lot of people want PLTR to be included in the S&P 500. One of the big reasons is there's a lot of investors that just purchase the S&P, tracking the general market, and this is a big sign of a company achieving the milestone of maturity by getting involved into this index. Now, with this being said, one of the most respected milestones, like we said, the S&P 500, talking about the inclusion, what the criteria is, and among all the other candidates, how does Palantir specifically stand out? And one of the big things and the most difficult criteria to get into the S&P 500 is usually relating to the profitability. However, Palantir has actually been eligible for the S&P 500 following its earnings report from the third quarter of 2023. And since then, we've still seen continued generating positive earnings. And now Palantir has now posted not 4, not 5, but 6 consecutive quarters of profitability on a general accepted accounting principles on a GAAP basis. On top of this, Palantir has been eligible for the S&P 500 the past 2 quarters. So will it be in this S&P 500? Maybe, but we wouldn't obsess too much over it. And I would agree with this article right here talking about there really isn't any specific reason on why Palantir has not been chosen yet. One of the theories out there possibly is maybe the themes that are fueling Palantir's business, and maybe they want to see how AIP is going to play out maybe over the next few quarters here, how the next few earnings are going to go. That's just a theory. However, One reason why I don't think we should obsess over to it, because we don't know when it's going to happen, and it's really probably only going to have a positive effect, in my opinion, once it does happen. Historically, once we've seen stocks that do enter the S&P 500, they usually, just due to all the different funds that are tracking this index, usually get about a 4 to 5% increase in valuation, just due to the general buying pressure of that stock being included now in a much larger fund. Now, talking about the market today, what we specifically wanted to talk about, Salesforce comes down 20%, and this brings the Dow Jones down over 300 points. And like I said, one of the main big things here on top of this is the release of the key inflationary data report that is also going to have a big effect on what's going to be happening with interest rates. And we're also seeing something that investors don't like in terms of the probability of those interest rate cuts is an uptick in the 10-year Treasury yield. This has really started to hurt investor sentiment this week, and higher yields can really be bad news, as in terms talking about here, this is going to lead investors into safer investments as we get to higher Treasury yields. Now, let's talk about NVIDIA really quick here. Specifically, NVIDIA and how the stock split looms, why this is happening, and what this means. Now, NVIDIA is due and announced after its amazing quarter earnings. And we see NVIDIA that has popped up is actually cooling down a little bit, but specifically where NVIDIA sits right now is at $1,100. And I think a little bit of this cool off right here, kind of following the general market that we saw today, down about 4%, is not over justified, or, it should not be concerned in any reason here. NVIDIA has accelerated over the last year in an immense amount of a percentage. And where we see NVIDIA right now, it makes sense why they're going through a stock split. $1,100 per share. This 10-for-1 stock split is going to affect June 7th. And really what this means is that the price of one share could just be over $100, because now if you have a share of NVIDIA, you're going to have a 9 additional for a total of 10 shares. And what this does in sense, it doesn't change valuation, market cap, nothing like that. It really just makes it more affordable and more attractive for potential investors that can now get a share for $100 some rather than $1,100. It seems, just in a psychology type of perspective, seems cheaper, even though nothing really has changed in terms of the actual market cap of the company. Now, what we have seen is previously too, as stocks have gone, big, high-valued stocks have gone through the split right here, NVIDIA could be a candidate to enter the Dow 30, which is a price-weighted index. After stock splits, historically, Apple and Amazon have been other big stocks that have joined this, so NVIDIA could be hopping around the corner here. This could be great in terms of exposure, and also in terms of just continuation on these amazing in the first quarter results that they had right here, as sales grew 262%. while earnings came up over 461%. Really some historical numbers. However, on top of where we sit in the market, it'll be interesting to really see what happens, specifically talking about Palantir and getting involved here, the cooling off of the hype behind this project, getting involved in here, and how the market's going to play out. I think in the short term, we're all going to be keeping our eyeballs on what's going to be happening with the index and what's going to be happening with inflationary data. I think this is going to cause a large momentum swing. What we have seen historically, though, specifically, is usually if we have a bad inflation report, it seems that typically we have a red trading day, we see a pullback, and then all of a sudden, all that negative trading is wiped out in the matter of one day. This can just be due to the bullishness and the buying pressure that we're seeing in the market. However, this does not necessarily mean, of course, this is going to happen, just like it has before. History does not always repeat itself. So we need to be kind of more speculative there, be more prepared in nature. What happens if we start to see inflation starting to creep back up? Because I'll tell you right now, the probability for those interest rate cuts is going to dwindle due to the fact that the Fed, number one, has officially said that, hey, they are not holding back on efforts to reduce inflation. And number two, we've already seen that probability for the first interest rate cut breaking down from 70% down to about 50%. So we'll be keeping a close eye on this. What do you guys think is going to be happening with the market tomorrow? Do you think this news for Palantir is good? Are you guys going to be interested in the NVIDIA stock split? I want to know all your thoughts down in the comments. It's been so great to interact with you guys. Peace out. Take care. Have a great Friday.